I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 63. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hey friends, welcome to this week's episode. How the heck are you? I am great. My parents are in town, which is so fun because they haven't seen my son since he was 4 or 5 weeks old. And, because COVID, they live in the Midwest. So, but they made it out here and they're here and they're visiting their grandson. And it's so fun to watch because he's in that perfect baby stage where he giggles and laughs and plays and it's just like pure joy. So it's been really fun to see. And they're the kind of grandparents that like get on the ground and crawl around with him, which is hilarious and awesome. So it's been a fun week around here. Well, let's dig into today's content, shall we? This podcast is titled Massive Action versus Passive Action. And there's been a few things that came up with clients this week that made me think about this topic. There's been a few things that have come up within Velocity Work that made me think about this topic. And so I thought I'd bring it to you. I always think about this. This is in the back of my mind constantly, massive action versus passive action, because it's so easy to take passive action and feel very productive. And so here's the difference. Massive action is any action that takes you closer to a result. Passive action with a P, passive action is usually stuff that you can delegate. It's busy work. It's consuming information. So I guess you can't delegate consuming information, but it's busy work, kind of putzing around, right? So examples for me, like I know I'm in passive action. I'm sort of like going a little unconscious, doing some busy work where I'll like mess with my Calendly, or I will look at my inbox, sort of in a space where I didn't really have this plan to like hit email hard. I'll just look at my inbox, see what I've been missing. And it's almost like there is some productivity to it, right? But it doesn't need to be done by me. I don't need to spend my time doing that. What I need to spend my time doing, and like you need to spend your time doing as the owner, is using your time to take your firm forward. And so for me, using my time to take my business forward. And so this is the kind of stuff I work with clients on all the time. I don't always use the language massive action and passive action when I'm working with Mastery Group or sprinters, or my private clients, but it is in the back of my head constantly. And I try to use different language to help them see that they are not really lining up with the results that they want with the actions that they're taking. Now, this can also be, which we have talked about recently on the podcast. There's a book called Indistractable by Nir Eyal. Everything he says in that book, it feels like he's my brother from another mother. I mean, it's exactly what I've been teaching. He just has a really great way of putting it, a different way of putting it. In that book, he talks about that every action you take is either putting you on a path of distraction, where you are allowing yourself to be distracted by the less important things, or you're indulging in the less important things, or you're on a path of traction, which means your actions actually line up to the results that you want to create for yourself. So it's kind of just another way of thinking through this material is it's called like the kind of action you take is either massive action, which is towards a result you want, or passive action, which is still important. Like a lot of times that work is important and needs to be handled and needs to be done, but it's not your best and highest use of your time. So I wanted to chat a little bit about that and give you just a few things to think about for yourself. There is a couple of examples that I've come across recently. Well, I mean, sprinters, anyone who's taking part in a sprint, first of all, let's just be clear. Anyone that takes part in anything I do, you don't get by with passive action. It's just not. That's not a thing with what we do, because that's the whole point, is to really line you up with the results you want to create, which sometimes that's the hard work, because it requires you to really use your brain, really think, really carve out time just do things differently because we get so caught up in feeling very busy, but not actually being productive. That doesn't get to happen inside of Velocity Work in any capacity. So whether you're in mastery group, whether you're taking part in a 30-day sprint, whether you are a client who's working with me year over year on a deeper level, that this doesn't get to happen inside. But one of the participants of the October sprint, one of the things he is working on is creating a plan. Well, the result that he's working towards is to increase the number of referral partners he has. So he has a very specific goal for that, to increase the number of referral partners. And he's identified what he needs to do in order to get that number of referral partners. So he's going to reach out to this certain number of referral partner or potential referral partners. And he's got a plan. And this whole month he's been working on writing the scripts that he's going to use when he's, or, an outline of how he's going to present things to people he's contacting. He basically has outlined his entire plan. It didn't take him that long to do the plan. And it's very easy for someone to look at that and say, well, isn't that passive action? But it isn't, because it's lined up with a very specific result. So each day, they have to report in on what they're doing. Each one of those, even if it's a tiny step, that is massive action. That's the kind of action that lines you up with a very specific result. There are times where sprinters will come and say that they've done something, and I'm like, is that really necessary to take you closer to your result? And we'll have a conversation about it. And oftentimes it is, they're right, but it's good to have a conversation so there's a lot of clarity for them and for me as the coach. So this particular participant who's working on the referral partners, he's been doing all of this work, and now he's at the point where now he has to reach out to people and use the plan that he's created. And it's a really good plan. It fits him. It fits his firm. It's a great plan. And this for him is the scary part. This for him is the part that's like, oh God, it just, it's harder to do for a bunch of reasons, most of which exist in our minds, right? That's where the fear comes in, or fear, just hesitation. But he knows that this is it. And he kind of, one of the lessons he recently gave was this feeling, or, this action I'm getting ready to take, this is the good kind of action. The scary feeling is for good. And he's starting to, it's just a good lesson for him that there's a very specific way, that he feels about the step he's taking. And he's learning that is the key. That needs to be felt on a very consistent basis if he wants to grow his firm. He's got to get out of his comfort zone, right? So it's just been a cool process to watch him take small steps that are massive action, that are leading up to a result. And now it's time to actually execute on his plan in order to get the result, which is the scary part for him. And for most people, by the way. So it's just fascinating to watch. I'm so proud of him. And that's just one example of people in the sprint. It's like, this is what they're doing. And this is why I think the accountability is so important, because you have to hold yourself to a standard to not just be busy, but to actually create results. And it's very easy. And it's very easy for us to justify why we might not do that, because we're busy lawyering, or we're busy, like whatever it is for you, right? But it's easy to get caught up in the busyness of owning a firm and of being a practitioner in the firm as well. And it's great to see people who just won't use that as an excuse anymore. They won't allow that justification. It doesn't get in the way of them achieving the results they want to achieve. So it's fascinating. There was another story that I wanted to tell you. Gordon, who you heard a few months ago, if you listened to the Mastery Group podcast series that we did, Gordon was one of the guests that was on the podcast that I interviewed. And he today on a call said that he told a story. Basically, they have to give a lesson learned every day. His lesson was deadlines create energy. It's like something that he gets it now. He saw it play out for himself and his firm and for his team. And so deadlines create energy. And I loved it as soon as he said it. But I asked him to expand on what that was about. And he said, I just realized, we had a meeting and I'm getting the team together and we have to rally around. If we want to complete this project, this result that we set out to create. We've got 2 weeks left in October. We got to get on it, and we got to stay on it, and we got to be on point. And so, he's essentially rallying his team saying, hey, we've got 2 weeks left. We can do this. Let's do this. And so what his whole point was, he could feel an energy shift with his team. Not only has there been pretty good energy towards it, but now it's like coming up to the deadline, and he's able to use that. And the team is able to use that to create more and better energy towards the result. I loved that. I was contemplating that line while we were on the call. And then after we got off the call, I contemplated it some more. It's just such a good lesson. Deadlines create energy. We all know deadlines are good, and there's a bunch of reasons deadlines are good. But that statement to me just hit home. It just feels more true than some of the other things that you hear about, the great things about deadlines. Deadlines are great for a lot of reasons, but I loved what he said. So I asked him if I could use it in a podcast, and he said, sure, go ahead. So that's why we're talking about it now. I think I'm going to use that. I'm going to deliberately think that on purpose more and more and more, because it's a very useful thought to think. It's a very productive perspective, and it keeps you lined up with massive action. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you guys today, is that if you want to help yourself be more on the path of traction, right, instead of distraction, or another way to say that is moving towards the results you want to create. Number one, you got to know you have to pick a result. One. You guys hear me talk about this all the time. I feel like it's important to reiterate, because we'll spread ourselves too thin. One result that you want to create so that you can hurry through. No, that's the wrong word. You never hurry. So that you can focus on that. You move at a better clip, and then you accomplish the result, you complete it, and then you're on to the next, instead of watering yourself down among many. And so you have to be clear about what it is you're doing, right? And then once you get on the path to doing it, the setting deadlines for even just the milestones, right? Setting a deadline for the result itself is great, but maybe there's a way to set deadlines for the milestones of that project, of that result that you want to complete. But however you can break it down, setting deadlines is a really great way to keep yourself on track, on the path of traction towards the result you want to create. Another way to say it, if you put deadlines in place, it's another way to keep you in the mode of massive action versus passive action. So I want you to ask yourself, where are you allowing passive action to soak up your precious days, hours, minutes? And there's probably, if you're listening to this, there's probably something that popped into your mind that you're like, it is passive action. And then there's going to be justifications that come up, but it's necessary. I have to do that, right? I want you to really think about, how can you create more space to take massive action in your day-to-day and have less of the passive action on your plate? What needs to happen? Delegation is for sure needs to be looked at, right? Because someone else can handle some of the busy work. I did a podcast, last week's podcast episode was with Talitha Gray Kozlowski about delegation. And so we go deep there if you really want help, because some of you are going to be listening to this and realize like, I just need to do it. I need to be better about delegating. I need to delegate more. I have got to free myself up to be able to take more of this massive action. Well, so go back and you can listen to that podcast. That will be helpful, for sure. So I highly recommend it. It's episode number 62. Once you once you kind of look at, where am I kind of spinning? Where am I doing busy work? It feels important, and I am lying to myself when I say I'm the only one that can do it. So let's be honest about that. I'm choosing to do it. How about I choose to allow someone else to take this off my plate, set them up well to do well with it, and then I have some space to work on creating more results in and for my firm. I have more of a chance to take massive action every day instead of passive action every day. And here's the thing, when you are in line with more massive action, what ends up happening is that you create more value with your time. Your time is extremely valuable. It's the most precious asset that you have, because you can't replenish it. So using it to its fullest extent is so important. And I think we all know that in our heads, but then we take it half seriously in our day to day. That is something that you've got to get right about. You've got to understand that the more value you can put into your firm, the faster it's going to become the firm that you imagined, right? If you don't, and you stay, there's doing the kind of action that doesn't produce results, of course your firm is not going to move in the direction that you really want it to go at the clip that you would prefer. So that is something to think about. Let roll around in your mind. I also thought I would share my experience with what's happening inside of Velocity Work and how I'm noticing this show up. My team and I we sat down a couple months ago and we planned out a lot for the rest of the year and into 2021 a little bit. And actually beyond that, but more granular through just the beginning of 2021. And what is fascinating now that I'm seeing, we know the results we want to create, and we know we put some things on the calendar that has force functioned a lot of massive action. And it's not that I didn't know that, but I didn't think about, that's not the terms I was thinking of when we were making these plans. It was like, yeah, this plan makes sense. This would be an awesome cadence to have in terms of distributing content to people. And these would be great opportunities for attorneys who are running their own firm. And so it just all made sense. It was like, this is going to be challenging, but this will be awesome. So we really challenged ourselves with the calendar that we created for us and through the beginning of 2021. Well, now we're a couple months into that. And what is happening is those deadlines have pushed us to create a ton of content. It has pushed us to create some massive action and thus massive results. And that's what I wanted to offer that to you, because what ends up happening when you do take massive action, you don't just create results. You do create results, but they're big, because it will blow your mind the kind of results you can create when you line yourself up with those results. It just happens so fast. You are plowing through the results that you were shooting for because you have them scheduled. You got to show up for it. And then the deadline comes for that. And then you're on to the next, and there's a coming deadline. And then you're on to the next, and there's a coming deadline. And I got to tell you, we have had a blast. There's been some really tough points, like just us figuring things out, because there's been some new things for us, but we have had a blast creating together results, and we've learned a lot, and we're going to be, I think, pros at this pretty soon. But I am just experiencing a momentum, a velocity, if you will, a momentum towards the things that we've been wanting. And I do see it when my clients are doing that. I see it. But I'm just telling you, I've had flows in my life like this before, but we are in a flow now because we are dedicated to taking massive action every day and not spending time with passive action. And the passive action that exists, that's important to take inside of the business, that is now being delegated to VAs or, someone. It's like the more value that we create for Velocity Work, which is for owner attorneys, the more valuable our time is, because our brains are just being developed and lit up and turned on, and we're having new ideas and we're creating more and more and more, the less and less and less of the piddly stuff we can handle. And if we want to achieve the results that we set out to achieve, we have got to get that stuff off our plate. And it's no different for you as the owner of your firm. It's no different. So I really just wanted to offer you that too, that's another reason I wanted to do this episode today, is because I'm in the thick of it. I am in the thick of massive action. I am in the thick of delegating all the things that I don't need to be doing. I am in the thick of putting heavy guardrails around my schedule so that I have time to spend and use my brain to create the results I want to create, which is taking massive action, right? So it's like everything, we're sort of forced to line up with big results because we have deadlines scheduled. And so I loved that. Kind of goes back to what Gordon was saying, deadlines create energy. And oh, yes, ma'am and sir, they have. So there's a lot of energy inside of Velocity Work right now, which is super fun. Okay, everyone, that is what I have for you. I hope that's helpful. I want you to think and reflect for yourself. I want you to take time and figure out, don't just consume this podcast. Take something away from it. Make a decision because of this podcast, even if it's one small decision. Make a decision because for sure, if you're listening to this, there's something that's popped up about your world that probably needs to shift. Make it happen. All right, everybody. I will see you on the flip side. Hey there. If you enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend you come and check out Mastery Group. It is where owner attorneys come together to study this material, apply it, and thus create really big results for their firm and for their life. So come on over, velocitywork.com/join to get more information and get started. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.